Good morning, welcome to another edition of Table Talk. Grace and I sitting at our kitchen table.
Yes, we are.
Doing some talking. Psalm 73 today. Before we get into that, anything to report on the week, Mrs. Hosier?
I allowed my daughter to cut my hair, which was a success. I was very pleased with that. So you can see, it's a bit shorter than last week, if you've been watching every week.
Vidal Sassoon, eat your heart out. It was your birthday last Wednesday, wasn't it?
Yeah, had a good day. Girls remembered, which is always a plus. Yeah.
Went out for a bike ride together in the
We
morning?
did, yeah. We cycled to Wimborne, to the butcher's in Wimborne, which was good. It was. It's a very nice butcher's.
Cycling to the butcher's for your birthday.
It's very exciting. We did go through the heath and some woodland and the Castlemaine Trail, just to explain that it's a very beautiful bike ride, and back via Holes Bay. Those of you in the church who cycle will know that route.
Yes, indeed. Okay, Psalm 73, great psalm. Can you read it for us?
What, the whole thing?
The whole caboodle.
Okay. Psalm 73, a psalm of Asaph. Surely God is good to Israel, to those who are pure in heart. But as for me, my feet had almost slipped. I had nearly lost my foothold, for I envied the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. They have no struggles. Their bodies are healthy and strong. They are free from common human burdens. They are not plagued by human ills. Therefore pride is their necklace. They clothe themselves with violence. From their callous hearts comes iniquity. Their evil imaginations have no limits. They scoff and speak with malice. With arrogance they threaten oppression. Their mouths lay claim to heaven, and their tongues take possession of the earth. Therefore their people turn to them and drink up waters in abundance. They say, how would God know? Does the Most High know anything? This is what the wicked are like, always free of care. They go on amassing wealth. Surely in vain I have kept my heart pure and have washed my hands in innocence. All day long I have been afflicted, and every morning brings new punishments. If I had spoken out like that, I would have betrayed your children. When I tried to understand all this, it troubled me deeply. Till I entered the sanctuary of God, then I understood their final destiny. Surely you place them on slippery ground, you cast them down to ruin. How suddenly are they destroyed, completely swept away by terrors. They are like a dream when one awakes. When you arise, Lord, you will despise them as fantasies. When my heart was grieved and my spirit embittered, I was senseless and ignorant. I was a brute beast before you. Yet I am always with you. You hold me by my right hand. You guide me with your counsel, and afterwards you will take me into glory. Whom have I in heaven but you? And earth has nothing I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. Those who are far from you will perish. You will destroy all who are unfaithful to you. But as for me, it is good to be near God. I have made the sovereign Lord my refuge. I will tell of all your deeds.
Thank you. Well, this is a really important psalm. It's a really important psalm pastorally, and in terms of our personal psychology, I think it's actually one of the most important, one of the most helpful psalms for us in thinking about our attitude towards God, our attitude towards ourselves, our attitude towards the world. So it's a very honest psalm. So it begins, God is good, but I had nearly slipped. I'd nearly given up and nearly thrown it all away, is where he begins. Really the issues he's describing in those first few verses is it all worth the bother? Is it worth the bother of living a good life, of seeking to live faithfully before God, faithfully to God? Is it worth it? Because so often it can seem that those who are not living that way, those who are pursuing number one, those who are being dishonest, those who are avaricious, those who are not faithful but are faithless, it can often seem like they are getting ahead more and they're having a better return from life than I am when I'm seeking to live in a way which is honouring God, being faithful to him and his calling upon my life. And I think there's a bit of a sense actually in this, which this psalm articulates, that sometimes being a Christian, you can just feel a bit of a mug being a Christian, because we follow Jesus, we do things the right way, and at times it can feel like we don't get the rewards for that. Instead, it can feel at times like you actually kind of, maybe not receiving the obvious rewards of the world in quite the way that people who maybe act with less integrity, less faithfulness, people who act more ruthlessly, perhaps seem to get ahead, achieve more, accumulate more, all the rest of it. And of course that is written through Christianity. Think of the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5, where Jesus talks about the upside down values of the kingdom, that you're blessed when you're cursed, and blessed are those who mourn, and all those kind of things, where Jesus just turns the normal values of the world upside down. So the psalmist is articulating some of that sense. Is it worth it? Is it worth pursuing God in this way when it can seem like the rewards aren't tangible and obvious? But then gets to verse 15 and he kind of comes to his senses and says, if I'd spoken this way, I would have betrayed your children. And that's a really important insight for us as well, because we should be honest with God. But what Asaph displays here is that while being honest with God about how we're feeling about stuff, we shouldn't speak in a way which undermines the faith of others. And it's easy to do that if we're struggling with stuff, we can articulate honestly how we're feeling, but we shouldn't do so in a way which undermines the faith of others. That's actually a betrayal. So there's a bit of a warning for us there. And then as he gets towards the end of the psalm, everything comes into perspective, because he comes into God's presence, and it's when he actually enters back into the presence of God that things start to make sense again, and he sees things in their proper perspective, which is that the way of the world, with all its markers of achievement and success and pleasure, actually are thin and folly and will come to nothing. Charles Spurgeon, the great Victorian preacher and church leader and evangelist and all-round superstar, he says about this, that Asaph had acted as if he knew nothing, had babbled like an idiot, had uttered the very drivel of a witless loon. And Asaph comes to that point where he recognises, I've just been talking like a witless loon, even entertaining these thoughts. And where he gets to is this sense of coming back into the presence of God. Actually, God's not going anywhere. God hasn't changed. God's faithful. And to be in his presence, to be near God, to find him as my refuge, actually puts the whole thing into perspective. So really important psalm pastorally, really important psalm for our personal psychology. Perhaps helpful for us at this time when we're locked away and everything's in craziness anyway, to be reminded again that our true refuge is the presence of God. Come into his presence, that puts things into perspective.
Great. I do have things. He's looking at me expectantly. Expectantly. So I think the crunch point, as Matt was saying, for me there is that it's very easy to look out at the world and think everyone else is healthy and strong and they seem to have such an easy life. And I think that is true for some Christians. Actually face a lot of struggle, a disproportionate amount of struggle in their lives when you compare that life to somebody who's not even walking with God, and that can seem really unfair. So this week, one of our old friends from London contacted us to say that she's got ovarian cancer and she's just started chemotherapy, and this is another thing on top of a load of difficulties that she's had in her life, many things, and we said to each other, why is it some people just seem to have trouble after trouble after trouble? And she started a YouTube channel just tracking her journey through cancer. And she just talks about the faithfulness of God. And for her, the crunch comes on the fact that God is there. He never abandons her. And she has an eternal perspective. And that's what you have here in the middle of the psalm, When you get in the presence of God, you get an eternal perspective. Troubles may come, but they don't last forever. What lasts is God's glory and the promises that He's made to you. So you need to be encouraged and not get into pointless comparisons with the world, because their final destiny, people, if they don't know Jesus, that is a big problem, however rosy their lives might look. And I love the way, as with many of the Psalms, it finishes in a place of worship. When you get back into worshipping, you get your perspective right.
Very good. Thank you. Great psalm.
Good psalm.
Anything else? Anything you're about the coming week we're anticipating?
No, it's half term, but it doesn't
Half-term.
really feel like it. But we're going to try and pretend it's half term.
Bank holiday weekend.
Yeah.
Memorial Day in the States. I think they have it on Monday, our bank holiday. All feels a little bit meaningless, doesn't it? Although lots of people visiting Dorset, I think,
Yeah.
to come and enjoy our beauty spots.
Yes. Let's be gracious to them.
You're my beauty spot.
Thank you.
Be blessed, enjoy the Psalms, and hope to see some of you by Zoom, if not face to face,
See you
sometime soon.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.